Good evening. Welcome to this virtual meeting to present and receive feedback on the linear park design. I'm Alex Ameri, Director of Public Works for the city. Given the exposure and the location and the community that it serves, I've been very excited about the potential that this park has. I have been even more excited after I've seen the preliminary design for development of the park. We have with us tonight Dave Hung, Senior Civil Engineer Project Manager for this project. As some of you may know, Dave has been was the project manager for the recently completed Mission Boulevard improvement project. So this is complementary to that project. We also have Kathy Garcia, Deputy Director of Public Works, and also Michelle Koo, the city's landscape architect. I will ask Dave to take it from here and introduce the project and the design team. Dave?
Great. Well, thank you, Alex. Good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate your time in joining us this afternoon, and more importantly, your interest with the Linear Park project. We are in the design phase, design stage of the project. We've completed the conceptual design and the design development phase.
Dave, we have a bad mic. I don't know if it is your mic.
Can you hear me okay?
Right now, yes. Go ahead.
So we are currently in the design stage of the project. We have completed the conceptual design as well as the design development stage. We are in the construction document phase. So the purpose of this meeting tonight is to present the latest design, to receive questions and feedback as we are preparing the construction documents. Next. For the overview, if Ty, you could back up to, sorry. So for the overview of the presentation, just quickly wanted to go over the project and team introductions. We'll recap the conceptual design and go over the design development, the planting and material strategy. Then we have next steps, and then we'll open up to Q&A. As for the introduction, previously Alex has introduced the city's team for Surface Design Incorporated. They are the landscape architect consultant. We have this afternoon Penelope Leggett, Tyler Jones-Powell, and Tim Kirby with us. Sub-consultant to them are RJA and Brookwater. They are the civil engineer and the irrigation designer. Our host tonight is Michael Oney. So before I continue, Michael, if you could go over the housekeeping items, please.
Sure, thank you. So once question and answers are open at the end of the presentation, if you use the Zoom app on your device, you can click the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom taskbar. If you have dialed in, you want to press *9 to raise your hand, and then you'll want to click *6 to unmute yourself. Again, please hold all questions until after the presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Michael. So as you can see in the slide here, the linear park is the green area with the pink dashes rectangle on the east side of Mission Boulevard between Fairway Street and the South City limit, right before Chapel of the Chimes. It's also, as Alex mentioned, within the limits of the completed Mission Phase 2 project. That project did not include landscape improvements to the linear park, but it did include improvements like the reconstruction of the asphalt pathway, adding lighting, as well as the irrigation main. The total funding, the that's been approved for the linear park includes $2 million budgeted for construction and does not include very costly things like new fencing. The $2 million includes the following. They are cleaning up of the existing asphalt path edge, relining the existing path at 2 locations, adding decomposed granite along the shoulder, one side of that shoulder, using recycled concrete for paved spaces and pathway, cleaning up of the existing fence line, planting of no-mow sod, wildflowers, perennial plants, and trees, adding seating tables, trash receptacles, and doggy waste stations, and finally, our crosswalk. So at this point, I'll hand it over to Tyler Jones-Powell with Surface Design.
Great, thank you, Dave. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ty Jones-Powell from Surface Design. We're excited to share our progress thus far on Mission Boulevard Linear Park. To give a bit of a recap, we're really looking, what's so amazing about this site is its adjacency to the East Bay Hills. So we're really looking to the hills just to the east of us and that language of the rolling hills and the shadows as our inspiration. And also looking to the natural flora and fauna that you might find that has a seasonality to it, whether it's lupin or poppies or mustard. And then looking at how we can shape the land in a way such as this, that can kind of abstract the hills nearby on our site. And if we look at how close we are, we can see, through that abstraction, we're really able to make a connection from our site just to the east, to the opposite side of the Fairview neighborhood. And as our sort of diagram that we're using, but really using the East Bay Hills as sort of our background, the backdrop to our park, and then creating what we're referring to as the cloud hedge. And this would be adding to the existing oleanders along the property line. And that would sort of emulate the fog as our midground. And then in the foreground, that abstracted earth forms that resembles the East Bay Hills. So we have the sort of background, midground, foreground. And if we look at that in section, we can see how that kind of strategy is playing out, where we're shaping the earth on site to make a larger link to the East Bay Hills, not only to create that connection, but also to create a three-dimensional interest within the park. And also sort of changing the perception of vehicles driving by, that, rather than just sort of a flat site, that there's sort of interest along what is sort of a busy street. We'll also look to we're also maintaining the existing path and probably about 80% of the existing trees that are out there. And the lighting that was installed as part of the phase 2 project. Our strategy too is to complete the privacy hedge along the eastern property line with that kind of mid-ground cloud hedge, and to really complete the vision of Mission Boulevard. There's been so much improvements with the streetscape. It looks, it's the median planting and everything is looking really good, and we want to play off of that, and this is really sort of a critical link to that, not only to complete Mission Boulevard, but to create a really welcoming entrance to the city as you're coming up from the south. And again, just that sort of very simple strategy, very cost-effective strategy of cut and fill to create that the earth forms on site. The result of which is this sort of rolling hill landscape that runs the length of the site that really kind of captures shadows and changes throughout the day. To share our kind of design development of that since the last time, we wanted to go back and layer in a lot of the great comments that we got from you and from other community members that we were able to sort of glean through the first two community meetings, as well as other public outreach, understanding that maintenance and upkeep is kind of high on the priority list. That's definitely part of the project. Making more green, kind of downplaying the presence of the street. Mission Boulevard being a somewhat busy street, really downplaying that and creating more of a pedestrian-friendly environment, excuse me, within the park. As we zoom into the site here, we can start at the south end at Blanche Street. And as you're driving up Mission Boulevard, you're first greeted by what we're referring to as the Gateway Knoll. And this is sort of a monumental, kind of larger scale earth form that really demarcates the entrance to the city of Hayward. And you can see too, another strategy that we're using is kind of sourcing timbers, fallen trees from other city projects in the region and bringing those to our site and using those as a sort of natural play element and furniture as well. Maintaining and building off of the existing improvements that were done as part of phase 2 and introducing this series of earth forms that you see as kind of the light and dark circles that you see here. In cross section here, you can see how the earth forms are sort of working with the street and with the existing asphalt path. Another kind of big component that we're adding is along the existing path, which we're going to sort of clean up the edges. We're actually adding a 2'6" wide shoulder of decomposed granite, and this is a tan kind of light, softer material than the asphalt. And this is really meant for dog walkers, for joggers. It is something that will widen the path, but also provide kind of a different surface, maybe a more safer surface for sensitive dog paws and such. And along the fence line here, we are maintaining, just as sort of a budget conscious measure, we are maintaining that existing fence, but we will be doing a lot of work to clean that up, to get rid of invasive species, to clear trash, and to prune the existing oleander hedges along there. And in 3D here, you can see that entrance gateway knoll as you're coming in, the existing asphalt path to remain, and then we are punctuating the corners with shrub and perennial plantings. As we move down the street, you can, move down the park, you can see the earth forms continue, that we have moments where the pathway, the DG shoulder, decomposed granite shoulder expands to create moments where you can stop and kind of pull off the path, get out of the way, and have a moment to yourself and sit and look back at the park, have a conversation. We are also, all of the existing exercise equipment, which was installed as an Eagle Scout project from one of our community members. These are all to remain, and we have expanded, are incorporating those into the park with expanded paving areas. And you can see an example here of what that decomposed granite shoulder would look like along the edge of our existing path. And so the material around those existing exercise equipments would get that same kind of tan color for continuity. Another example of the sectional quality here, this is at a moment where we do have that kind of expanded seating area where we're using, we have some upcycled benches that we're able to repurpose for the park as well. But you can see how in section here, especially how the earth forms really are creating kind of a buffered sort of enclosed environment within the park, buffering from car noise along Mission Boulevard there. And another 3D of this block here, where we have high points with more drought tolerant grasses and low points which would have a more of a cooler tone in the form of a native no-mow sod. So we're really able to get a lot of seasonal variation with the high points and the low points and how much water is kind of filtering through the site. The cloud hedge along the property line where we'll be sort of filling in and completing along that edge and making sure that all of that, all of the planting is maintained and limbed up so that maintenance is easier as the park sort of ages. Another example where we have an existing redwood grove, which we're maintaining. In this case, this really lends itself to a different sort of moment within the park, where we can actually incorporate fallen logs as part of a play installation. And we're kind of referring to that as our exploratory pathways underneath the existing redwood trees. And using ferns and kind of more shade tolerant planting under there. As we work our way down the street at the corner of CORRINE and Mission Boulevard, this is across from that commercial core, we have kind of a larger expanded area at the corner here with a couple upcycled tables and chairs that would be permanent fixtures in the park. And this sort of would be a destination if somebody wants to come across here with their food and have a nice evening in the park. We're also incorporating pet waste stations along the length of the path. We've got 3 total, kind of 1 on each block. And then here's an example of the upcycled benches that will be installed in the larger paving areas. And you can see here too, the kind of lighter yellowish orange sort of color here, those are the high points. And then the cooler sort of blue-green are the low points. So you can see how the earth forms really are working with, they're working amongst the existing trees that we're retaining. And they're also working with that existing asphalt path that we're going to be keeping as well. A 3D view of that corner condition there with the kind of larger patio space and a good sort of close-up of the art crosswalks, which we can get into later. We are adding new trash receptacles. We have, I think, 8 total at each corner. We have recycling and litter. And then we are adding some mid-block as well. Just again, sort of thinking about long-term maintenance and keeping the park tidy. And the expanded trail here, you can see the decomposed granite shoulder there as a way to widen the path. And in the north parcel here, as we get to the north, you can see the earth forms working their way up to the corner, the reclaimed logs sort of finding their ways into the park in moments. And then the north parcel, we are doing minimal work in this portion with respect to resources for the park. We're really focusing on the majority of the improvements happening in the 2 longer blocks, and then the southern block, basically the portion that has the new asphalt path and the lighting installed is the areas that we're focusing in. Within the budget too, we've designated a couple moments along that existing path where we are proposing to realign the path and make it kind of a more sinuous experience. These are moments where the path is particularly straight. And again, to really kind of create that meandering effect that we want to achieve within the park. These are 2 moments that we've identified to realign the path. And it's pretty minimal in terms of scope in the project. And critically, we're not moving any of the lights. So that's sort of how we're able to keep the cost down for this particular part. And it really will kind of help with that meandering path quality. Planting strategy and material upcycling. As I kind of mentioned before, on the higher points, we have a mixture of native grasses, ornamental grasses, annual wildflowers, which will provide seasonal interest. And all of these would be drought tolerant and low maintenance. And you know, not only would we have poppies, we would have lupin and perhaps mustard seed, maybe even equilegia, other native flowers that, you know, when one goes, the other one will show up. So really kind of heighten that seasonality. In the low points, we are using a native no-mow sod, which has, you know, maintenance-wise won't require nearly as much as a conventional lawn, uses much less water, and it will still provide a place where you can sort of flop down and lay down if, you know, if desired. And amongst that, seasonal Douglas irises would be planted as well. Along the eastern property line, where we have some existing oleanders, part of the kind of cleanup strategy is along that fence line is to limb up and prune up those existing oleanders so that you know, trash or, you know, stuff doesn't get kind of hidden, you know, that the city is really able to maintain kind of a clear edge along that eastern property line. And that's a general strategy for any new planting, is to maintain a more manicured hedge along that property line. And an example here, rather than just replace with all of the old, you know, with only oleander, where we have gaps in the hedge, we're proposing a blend of, these are all white flowering plants. Again, this is that sort of fog cloud hedge. That's part of that mid-ground strategy. But infilling with a blend of white flowering hedging shrubs, which will provide privacy to the residences right there. We are able to mix in kind of a range of different types of trees. We have native valley oaks and black oaks, and these we're able to get some larger trees in these cases because they are kind of slower growing. But we do have 12 evergreen 48-inch box trees that will be going in. And these are all sort of, you know, strategically planted among existing trees that are to remain. Beyond that, we are incorporating some accent trees. So these would have, in the case on the left, this is an evergreen ornamental tree, strawberry tree that's native. Both of these are native, actually. And then the red bud on the right is a deciduous tree that flowers in the spring that we've seen in the neighborhood that does really, really well. So that's another way we're sort of tying to the neighborhood. But we are able to get 18 of these guys. And then sort of another strategy of ours, just again, sort of thinking about, you know, working with our budget and finding a really cost-effective way to bring in as many trees as we possibly can. We've identified faster growing deciduous and evergreen trees that we can plant as 15-gallon plants that will grow in pretty quickly over time. In 3 to 5 years, they would be providing shade. And I mentioned too that we are on the corners and sort of in moments, we do have a mix of perennial, drought tolerant and native low maintenance planting. And this is, you know, again, thinking about seasonality, these will not only provide really beautiful, you know, a really beautiful sort of texture to the park. It's also going to provide habitat. And if you think about the, you know, Mission Boulevard is about a mile long. Our linear park is about a mile long. So we would have this sort of continuous strip of habitat that we would be providing for the native fauna, excuse me. And then under redwoods, where we do have we have 2 existing redwood stands that we are keeping. We're planting more related plants underneath, I guess, what you would find in the redwoods, maybe in the North Bay, or you know, that you would find larger woodwardia type ferns or heuchera underneath, and keeping that sort of redwood duff that naturally occurs as the ground cover in those areas to create sort of a cool moment. Another strategy of ours for material for the expanded paver area is, and working with Dave has been a great resource on this, is actually processing, picking up, and collecting and relaying a portion of sidewalk along Mission Boulevard, which is part of the phase 3 development. So we're able to collect, we've been able to kind of secure 11,000 square feet of sidewalk concrete that we're gonna cut into these sort of pieces that you see here, and use as our sort of flagstone paving in the areas where we're expanding the decomposed granite. So it's a way where we're able to kind of, you know, we're able to reuse material within the city's kind of network, which is great, but we're also doing it in a way that really is working with our parks design. We've also identified benches that were removed from City Hall at the beginning of quarantine, just to prevent people from getting too close to each other, I guess. But we've identified these as we're able to actually reinstall these into our park. So this is a way that we're working within our budget, and still providing these sort of moments of seating. And I believe we have 10 benches total that we're going to be reinstalling here. And our strategy, Mission Boulevard being the sort of car-centric, you know, thoroughfare that it is, we do want to sort of acknowledge that just in sort of a sly way by repainting those metal benches and giving them new life by collaborating with an automotive painter. And this, you know, this is kind of more of a representation of what it could be, but we do want to kind of heighten that, the color that we'll see with the wildflowers. So it's sort of playing off of that. And these would find their way into the expanded paving areas along the park. This is an example there. We've also found in the city's storage yard these cast concrete tables, which similarly to the benches, we can repaint and bring in as permanent fixtures in that larger sort of plaza space across from the commercial core on CORRINE and Mission Boulevard there. And we're really excited about these ones, partnering with a local millwork, as well as talking to you know, maintenance crews within the city's department to source and process and bring recycled timbers to our park as play elements, but also as benches. And an example here of how that could be, or how that would look in our kind of expanded paving areas. That just very simply, you know, it's almost like Lincoln Logs, how they're sort of stacked together and arranged, that you can really create this sort of welcoming environment with integrated seating throughout the park. And another example here, kind of a longer string of those recycled timbers, where we have an existing, up against one of the existing redwood groves. And not necessarily upcycled, but another feature that we're able to bring to the park are art crosswalks. And, you know, this really is a way to kind of connect across the intersections, the 3 intersections that we have, and really make a kind of a continuous gesture of the park along the entire length. and sort of denote to drivers, to cars, that this is actually a people space as well, and a bike space. And an example of that, this is the corner of Blanche. And we're really looking to the wildflowers, the poppies and mustard, as inspiration for that, where we're actually supersizing that graphic and overlaying that onto the existing zebra striping, as a way to continue to make that connection across the corner with wildflowers. And lastly, incorporating new litter bins and pet waste stations along the length of the park to maintain tidiness. So in summary, the budget is including creating earth forms that are resembling the East Bay Hills, cleaning up and expanding the existing asphalt path, adding that decomposed granite shoulder on one side of the existing path to widen the path, and also provide a space for joggers and for dog walkers. Using the upcycled concrete from the Phase 3 Mission Boulevard project to create moments of kind of expanded paving moments with seating and the reclaimed timber. Cleaning up that existing fence line, removing invasive species, and pruning up the existing oleander, and completing that hedge with a blend of white flowering shrubs. Planting no-mow sod wildflowers and perennial plantings. Plant 70 to 75 deciduous and evergreen trees. Those are varying in size when they go in, but still a pretty good number of trees. And then incorporating the upcycled city benches and tables, the timber benches, adding litter bins and pet waste stations, and the 3 art crosswalks. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Dave.
Thank you, Ty. So our next steps, if we can go to the next slide, please.
Yep.
Would be really looking at the project timeline. So after this meeting, we go back to the Council Infrastructure Committee meeting on July 28th for any final comments before finalizing the construction documents. And then around October, we advertise the project, and if all goes well, we award the project, the construction contract in December. And then with that, construction tentatively would start around January of 2022 and would be completed around the summer of 2022. With that, concludes our presentation. And at this point, we will open it up for questions and answer.
Thank you. If you'd like to make a comment or question, please press the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom taskbar. If you have dialed in, press *9 on your phone to raise your hand, which will alert me. Okay, so go ahead, and if you'd like to make a comment, please raise your hand, and we'll do it on a first come, first served basis. Okay, great. So our first comment is going to come from Mimi. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk. One moment. Okay, Mimi, if you can also unmute yourself, you can begin your comment.
Okay, can you hear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so actually, my husband and I are here, and he has a question.
Yeah, did you look at bus stop shelters for the bus stops along the way?
So bus stop shelters, this is Dave. Hi, bus stop shelters would not be part of this project. In fact, we would have to work with AC Transit, and I believe the advertising company who would potentially install these. So that's something that we could do, but at least currently it's not part of this project.
So Dave, does that mean that the way it is right now, where there's just an asphalt strip at the bus stop, is what it would be?
Currently, it is, but we can, work with AC Transit. At the time, as part of the Phase 2 project, they did not have any bus shelters or funding for it. So it's something that we can reach out to them and see if they have any funding for any new bus shelters.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Bauer, this is Alex. That's a great
Alex.
comment. Hi. We will get in touch with AC Transit and Clear Channel and see if there is a way that we can secure a bus shelter.
But not to let it hold up the project, though. It's fantastic looking, you guys. Compliments to all of you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is going to be Mike Torbick. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to speak. Go ahead. If you could just unmute yourself, please.
There, okay.
Hi, this is Sandy Torbick. I've got a few questions. Number one, I've watched the last couple of years, I've watched tree after tree die along the strip. And there are still quite a few mature trees that can be saved. Are you planning on saving those?
Yes, we're saving about 80% of the trees that are out there. The trees that we have tagged to be removed are ones that are already dead or are not doing so well. But yeah, as far as mature trees, we're keeping all mature trees.
Okay, I'm being a little bit selfish, but there are about 5 or 6 magnolia trees behind my house, and they were beautiful. And now they've shown the drought symptoms, but they can still be saved. Will you be willing to do that, or are magnolias not in your design?
I believe we are saving that stand of magnolias, yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. The other question I have is about the trimming and the pruning of the oleanders. My home used to have a dense growth of trees, even ivy trees and other trees, 3-4 foot deep and tall, so that I had a sound barrier. The city took that out, and I have a fence now, and the noise is like a 24/7 noise nightmare. So if you prune all of these oleanders and stuff, the noise is just going to get louder. Is there a possibility of a sound wall before you do all of this? Hello?
Of a sound wall, a building?
Before, between the private fences, put a sound wall in front of that and then do your planting. Because if you prune those oleanders up, that's less foliage, that's more noise that comes in, and it is magnified more than 100% anymore. It's 24/7.
One thing we looked at through the design process with it is the way sound layers up and how you consider that through the experience of the road, through the landforms, through the planting, to the fences. So part of that strategy Ty is touching on with the earth forms is about mitigating sound and attenuation of it. So while it's not a barrier of a continuous wall, it is meant to be of a certain height to diminish the sound. And then there's supplemental planting that would come in as well. So I think the two, collectively, we're trying to mitigate.
Well, the denser you can make the foliage or the growth of any kind of plantings, the denser you can make it along the fence line of the homes, the better off they will be.
Right.
Yeah.
I think even realigning 2 portions of the pathway, that'll increase a bit of space between the path and the fence, and which allows not only a little bit of seating area, but also additional planting area. So we are trying very hard to achieve the noise barrier.
Well, hopefully it's successful, but it is something to really consider. You should be out here for maybe stay out here for 24 hours and you'll see what we're talking about.
Mm.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Okay, if that was our last raised hand. If you'd like to make a comment or question, please raise your hand using the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom taskbar, or dialing *9 to raise your hand using your phone if you've dialed in. Okay, we have another one. Thank you. I'm going to go to, let's see, 4530. If you could dial *6 to unmute yourself on the phone.
Yes, thank you. My name's Tamala, and I live right, my home also, like the woman that just spoke, is literally right behind Mission. So our home, anybody throws anything, it's going to come into our yard. I agree that the things look a lot nicer there. It took 3 years to finalize, and I'm happy it's done. One thing which I don't think the park can really do anything about, except maybe the city can, is there any way cameras can be put up? Because anybody that lives where I live knows that at night, this is a drag strip. There's literally cars racing down the streets. Now, I know the park doesn't have anything to do with that, but is there any way cameras can be put up? Or does Hayward not allow cameras? Do they not afford them? Or what's the situation there with cameras by the stoplights? Because people go through the red lights, you know, all the time.
I don't think that they are any longer used in the city. There are current legislations that are going through the process that would allow the city for, installing cameras for speeding. We are in support of those legislations. We are hoping that they pass. This is a menace everywhere now, in the city and elsewhere. You're absolutely right. Something will have to be done about it, about the speeding, about doing donuts in not only major streets, but also residential streets. That's
Right.
a really good comment.
One other thing, please. You can always hope. One other thing is now with the maintenance, how often will, if there are going to be more people coming, which is the goal, I know, there's going to be more people eating, and not everybody is conscientious and throws away and being responsible, throws away their trash. Some people do, some don't. How often will there be maintenance? Will it be weekly or monthly? Because I hear them mowing at times early in the morning, but how often will the maintenance, the city of Hayward be, kind of maintaining the strip here? Like, is it a monthly basis, or how often is that protected?
That's a conversation that we'll have to have with our maintenance department. I would say that it would be much more frequent than monthly. Monthly is not going to be enough. And this is a park that is going to be maintained by city maintenance department, not by Hayward Area Recreation Park District. So we will have that conversation and raise your concern. That's a very good one.
Yeah, I mean, a couple times, even twice a month would be really nice, just to keep it looking nice.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have other things, but that's enough for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mimi, go ahead and unmute yourself, please.
Hi, to that point about maintenance, something that is always a problem. Every time I go out to Mission Boulevard, the trash cans are overflowing. And I'm always having to put a complaint into Access Hayward. So the trash cans that you have, I don't know if they're those, Alex, what are they called? Big belly ones or whatever?
Big belly ones, correct.
Because they can hold more trash at a time, I think. If they were them, so it holds more trash, that would be great. If not, in either case, honestly, we need trash pickup every day, because it seems like people, at least they're doing the right thing by putting the trash in the trash cans.
Yeah.
Because there are several fast food places at the shopping center that they're buying food from and then going over there. But if this park is going to be actually more of a park, if we definitely need somebody to be coming by probably every day to empty those trash cans.
Yeah, so the park is going to get those twin cans that you have seen in the downtown, the big bellies. They are a little bit more manageable in terms of not being able to stuff, household trash and other things in. We are in the process of negotiating with Waste Management for extension of our garbage franchise contract. I can tell you that one major point of concern is the service that they provide or lack thereof to the municipal accounts and how they should be improved. And if not, there will be liquidated damages. We are not happy with the service that they are providing currently, and we are pushing to improve that service.
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you because I know that I have talked to the city before about it, and that Waste Management was supposed to be on a schedule. And I can tell you that they have never been seen on the schedule that they said that they go by the linear park for pickup. They say they do it, but they don't. They honestly do not.
They are obligated to provide at least 3 times weekly pickup, but most of the town they are obligated to do it daily. And if they are not doing it, they are not doing their jobs.
They're not.
We've been in conversation with them. I've taken many photographs, pictures of overflowing cans in the morning, at night, showing them, proving that they have not serviced the cans. They have, a lot of different excuses about new drivers not knowing the locations and so on. But it has been a big concern of us, and we are talking to them. I can assure you that at every meeting we bring it up, and we had one earlier this afternoon too.
Yeah. Thank you for taking those pictures, Alex. You're the best.
Thank you.
Okay, our next comment is going to be from Julie Roche. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I had similar questions about trash. I think Mimi and the other caller beat me to that, but I was just curious about street sweeping. Can street sweepers get in between those bike lanes? Because some of the trash does tend to accumulate between the sort of, the bike lane barriers and the sidewalk. How does that work? Because there's, other than people going out hand picking up that trash.
So, that is related to the Mission Phase 2 project. The sweepers, they do have a difficult time weaving in and out where those bike divider islands are. As I understand it, landscape maintenance is working or has a contract with someone who will do the maintenance of the medians along with the divider island, and part of their contract is picking up trash that would, if any, that ends up in the bike lane area.
Okay, I know. I think they need to develop a super skinny, street sweeper that goes in between there. My other question is, and I apologize because I was late logging on today. What is the timing now of the project?
So Ty, if you could, Julie, I don't know if you can see the screen here.
Thank you. I'm sorry I missed this, so thank you.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So right now we are, working on the construction documents, and so we anticipate completion of that come around the October time, and if all goes well, the award of contract would be December of 2021, and then construction with that would be around January of 2022, and then completion in summer.
Oh, thanks for putting that back up.
Sure, no problem.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and I agree with the other cause. It looks great. Yeah, it's going to be a real benefit to our neighborhood. So thank you.
Great.
That was all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next comment is going to be from Mike Torbrick again. Go ahead and please unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Sandy again. I'm asking again about the planting along the fences of the existing homes. We have several homes that have the large oleanders that I know you're going to prune. But the houses that don't have anything there, are you going to put like-sized plants in? Or are you going, you can't put just like 1 gallon containers. It's not going to make it. You need to have the same size, whether it's oleanders or the other plantings, something comparable so that we don't have a straight line going with oleanders and all of a sudden it dips down to ground level where you're planting something that's going to take 20 years. So are you going to be able to get mature plants?
We are using 5 gallon and a mix of 5 gallon and 15 gallon shrubs. So we'll be starting with some infill. It'll be, you know, a little bit of a gap, but you know, it'll be much closer to filling in at the time of planting.
Let me give you my address. I'd like the 15 gallon plants, please.
Okay. We'll make sure the mound is really big by your house too.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other raised hands. Again, if you'd like to, for those new that joined us recently, if you'd like to make a comment, please click the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom taskbar. And if you've dialed in, please dial *9 to raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any other raised hands or questions.
Ty, if I could have you go to the very last slide. The last slide is, of course, thanking everyone for attending, but also at the bottom left corner are 3 ways to contact to get additional information or to look at where the very design stages we have. So we have a project email address, as well as a link to the project webpage, and finally a phone number. So these are the methods that you can stay in touch with the progress of the project, as well as if you want to email or phone.
You have one raised hand now.
Okay, go ahead, one moment. Okay, Peggy Guernsey, excuse me if I mispronounce it. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Can you explain the process for unmuting?
Sure, to unmute yourself, if you're using the Zoom app, go back to your Zoom taskbar and you should see a mic.
Ms. Guernsey is ready, I think.
Go ahead. We could barely hear you. Ms. Guernsey, if you could try speaking again.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, it shows that she's unmuted, but
Yeah.
we are unfortunately unable to hear you. Did you want to try again one more time to unmute and mute yourself using the mic button at the bottom of your Zoom taskbar? Okay, it shows that you're muted. Try go ahead and unmute yourself. And click that one more button one more time. Let's try that one.
Michael, can Ms. Guernsey call in?
Yes.
Just using her phone.
If you'd like to call in, you can do it right away. Let me give you the phone number. One moment. Okay, Ms. Gersensey, if you'd like to dial in, you can dial 669-900-6833.
One more time.
Phone number is 669-900-6833 if you'd like to dial into the meeting. And the webinar ID that you'll be prompted to enter is 963-5908-3297.
Too many numbers.
And then there's also a passcode.
Yeah, no, that's not going to work.
We might have to show it on the screen.
Let's see.
And can people comment on the chat?
We don't have the chat function
Okay.
on right now, unfortunately. Or should she provide her comment via email? That's listed on the screen.
Yes. Yeah, that would be another way.
Okay, Ms. Guernsey, if you can't see the screen, the email is going to be MBL as in Linda, P@hayward-ca.gov.
Yeah, that would be the initials for Mission Boulevard Linear Park. MBLP at hayward-ca.gov.
Okay. Yeah, it still seems like she's unable to mute herself. Ms. Guernsey, go ahead. It looks like you're unmuted.
Yeah, there is something going on with the technology.
Okay. Unfortunately, we can't hear you.
If you email us using the email here, Dave can call you and hear your concerns and answer your questions. There's a raise hand.
Sure. Okay, Mimi, go ahead. You could please unmute yourself.
Sorry, just a thought. It's not only just unmuting, but is the volume up for her?
Thank you for that. Let's see. Let's try again one last time. Okay, Ms. Guernsey, if you could also try. Okay, I see you unmuted. Oh, I think she lost connection.
Yeah.
Might have been a connection issue the entire time. Okay, I don't see any other raised hands at this time.
Okay. Did we also lose Dave?
No,
Dave, you're there?
I'm here. Yep.
What are the next steps? This webinar is going to be online.
Yeah, so thank you. We have recorded this Zoom session. So give us maybe a day or two. We'll get this uploaded into the project webpage that's shown on the screen right here. And then you'll certainly have the opportunity to look at it. And if you have any additional comments, questions, you can feel free to either call or email with the information that's shown on the screen. So at this point, yeah, thank you for the attendees for hanging in there. And thank you for the team also for your time this evening.
Thank you very much and good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.